Hi. This is like the 5th take, or maybe the 10th. I don't know, I've lost count. So, stigmatizing mental illness. We stigmatize mental illness on a regular basis. This includes with imagery, which I've made a video about, but hasn't gone up yet. So, pictures that you see. It also includes the way we talk about mental illness and the way we represent mental illness through, like, the media, through just phrasing. It's a common thing in society now and amongst people, and I've done it before. I'm not guilt-free. I have done it before. I hold my hands up and I say, that's wrong. Like, I can't make excuses for what I've done. All I can do is attempt to change my behaviour, and I've been a lot more self-aware about why certain things are not cool to say. Phrases like, I'm so OCD, what a schizo, psycho. These are common things that people say all the time. You hear people say these things all the time. You go to the cinema and you watch a film and it's always about somebody with a mental illness, and it's always about what a horrible person they are and what, like, they're a murder. The more that we use these phrases, the more that we buy into this stigma that every time you say a phrase, this isn't how you need to look at it. Every time you say something, you're implying something else. When you see somebody smashing in a bus stop, or if you see someone in the news who's murdered a kid, and you say psycho, you add to the stigma that suggests that somebody who has a mental illness is a murderer. Do you know what I mean? Like, there are people without schizophrenia and there are people with schizophrenia. Not all people with schizophrenia are murderers. There was a film not that long ago called Split, and I haven't watched it and I won't watch it because it took a mental illness and turned it into this nasty. It's, if you look at it as any other thing, like, you can see exactly where I'm coming from. If you take cancer and turn it into everybody with cancer is a murderous freak and they're crazy and they're gonna kill you, and it's horrible. And we do this all the time when we're saying these phrases, and you just don't think about it. I feel like when you refer to someone under the name of an illness, especially a mental illness, you're usually confusing somebody with a mental illness with a bad person. Some people with mental illnesses are bad people, but that doesn't mean that you can slam an illness with a terrible thing. Like, there's a difference between somebody who has schizophrenia and somebody who is just being violent or is a bad person. And a lot of these stigmas, like, that they show in films, a lot of the illnesses that they use, like personality disorders, in these movies that are huge. There's loads of movies about people with mental illnesses that portray them to be like a certain thing. No two people with the same illnesses are the same. You can have similar symptoms, you can maybe have some of the same symptoms, but symptoms affect people differently. Some people maybe have more violent tendencies because they have an illness, but it doesn't mean that they are dangerous. And if they are dangerous, for the most part, they are more dangerous to themselves. Murderers aren't all mentally ill, believe it or not. We need to stop slamming illnesses with everything bad that we see. Like, stop doing it. Don't do it. Like, yeah, there are schizophrenics and people with depression and people who have bipolar and all these other things that have killed people, obviously, but it doesn't mean that that illness is like, you're not a murderer because you have an illness. You haven't been diagnosed with being a murderer, with being a killer. You've been diagnosed with an illness. Like, your personality in the way that you are has nothing to do with it. So the next phrase is, I'm so OCD. OCD is not an adjective. I've said this so many times. I'm boring myself, quite frankly. OCD is not an adjective. OCD is literally a noun. It is the name of an illness. OCD for obsessive compulsive disorder. Now, me putting this pen in a certain place does not make me OCD. Me liking a picture to be straight is not OCD. Me putting my, what is this called? Post-it note pack back in a drawer in a certain way does not make me OCD. It's sort of like saying because you've got a pain somewhere in your abdomen, you have kidney failure. Like, no, you're not so kidney failure. You don't feel so flu because you sneeze. You either have flu or you don't. You don't you don't say, I'm so flu today. Why? Because I sneezed. No, you do have OCD or you don't, but you are not an illness. So you cannot physically be an illness. You can suffer with an illness, but taking like the most cliche, OCD is not this like cleaning thing. We take this illness, this horrible illness people suffer with and have to take medication for, and they have to learn to cope with it, and we take it and we like make it into this thing everybody has, so they can't be suffering with it. I have OCD sometimes, like I straighten a bit. You're taking away from the seriousness of it. You're sort of making it normal. We shouldn't be normalizing things in that way. It shouldn't be this thing where everybody has it, so you're not, because it's not like that at all. When you have something and you have to struggle with it every day, this idea that, well, everybody has it, so it doesn't matter, it affects the way people view you. And it's not cool to have an illness. It's literally, it's not a bad thing. You're not a bad person for having an illness, but it shouldn't be a cooler thing. It shouldn't be, somebody suffering shouldn't be cliche and sort of, well, everybody does that, like eye roll type thing, like just deal with it. You're sort of taking away their right to be treated and the right to be respected and the right to be acknowledged as having something that is a struggle every day. Straightening a picture when you go by because you knocked it on, like, I don't know, you put up a picture and you brush by it as you walk by, and then it turns on an angle and you're like, oh, I'm so OCD, and straighten it again. No, you're not. You're literally just correcting something. Like, your pet peeve is not an illness, it is just a pet peeve. The way you like something to be done, the way you consider things to be done correctly is literally just you. It's not an illness. It's just, stop saying it. Just learn the difference between a noun and an adjective. Learn that you cannot be an illness. You are not an illness. You either have an illness or you don't. And even if you have OCD, you shouldn't be saying, I'm so OCD. Like, you're just not. You're not OCD. OCD is a thing, but you're not it. Stop normalizing and adding to a stigma that directly affects you. I can't stand people who say, I'm OCD, so I can say this. Well, for a start, you're not. And no, you can't say this. It doesn't make it okay. I am not depression. Like, you are not a tumour. You just have one. You're not a tumour. That's a ridiculous thing to say. As a society, we put illnesses into two distinct categories. One being that illnesses are like trends, they're made out to be cool, everybody has them and can identify with them. But then there's these illnesses that are grouped and they are taboo and no one associates themselves with them, like schizophrenia and psychosis. And this is because of stigma. It's all stigma induced. So not wanting to identify with psychosis or schizophrenia because the stigma of it is that it's a bad thing and like bad things will happen to you. And whereas people identify with OCD because they've simplified it and picked out, that it's a tidy thing, in that you're basically a neat freak, and who doesn't want to be tidy? Anxiety is one of these illnesses that people seem to think is cute. It isn't cute to never leave your house, trust me. It's not cute to be terrified of making phone calls or be terrified of getting on a train. They affect your ability to do a lot of things. There's nothing positive about it, really. There are positive things about being a tidy person, but there's nothing positive about, like, some people scrub the skin off their hands because of their OCD, they can't touch things, or they have to do certain rituals because they believe that people will die if they don't. Like, that's not fun, that's not cool, it's literally awful for them. And that's what I'm trying to say to you, is that we categorize things. There's these illnesses that are cute and popular and everybody has them. OCD's cool, and like, I like my drawers tidy. And then you've got these illnesses that I wouldn't say that, like, I'm staying away from him, he can't look after my kids, he's a weirdo, he's got schizophrenia. What a schizo. The word or the prefix psych has nothing to do with being a dangerous person or a murderer. It is literally attached onto the beginning of words that refer to the mind or the brain, or the study of the mind or the brain. So psychic, psychiatrist, psychology, psychopath, psychosis, antipsychotics, they all are referential to the mind because they are all about the mind in some way. Illnesses do not discriminate against people. You can be old and have depression, or you can be young and have depression. Illnesses are not a body shape or a body type. So someone with anorexia does not have to be stick thin, they can be any size. Don't forget, it is a mental illness. It is not about the way you look. The way somebody looks doesn't say anything about their illness. Illnesses are not helpful or useful. They are not descriptive phrases. They do not define a person or their behaviour. Illnesses can fluctuate, and no two people with the same illnesses are the same. Illnesses are not a fashion or a trend. Most of all, someone with an illness should not be the butt of your joke. Stigmatization of an illness is often dehumanizing, misleading, and constantly affects the way a person is viewed in society, and even their right to seek the correct and most effective treatment. Lastly, I want to encourage you that your attitude to stigma, your attitude to mental illness, and just talking about it makes a huge difference. Calling people out on things is really important, and I'm not saying, be rude to someone. I'm saying educate people. Educate as many people as you can, and realise that everything that you do has a knock-on effect on somebody. The more we talk about how things are stigmatised, and the more that we change our behaviour, the better things get for the mentally ill. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe.